My guest today is Kerri Pomarolli. She's been featured on The Tonight Show 29 times, Comedy Central, ABC, and many more. She has hosted her own TV show on Mom TV and is a popular host on red carpets, including backstage at the Emmy Awards. Her latest book came out with the hit movie Mom's Night Out, starring Sean Astin. She was featured on The Nick at Night show, Mom's Night Out, and she's also an actor that's appeared in many films and TV shows, including General Hospital, The Young and The Restless, and on networks such as Lifetime, ABC Family, CBS, and many more. She's a screenwriter who sold her second film script to the Hallmark Channel. Kerri's been a correspondent for CNN's Showbiz Nite as an out-of-the-closet Christian in Hollywood. She's been featured on many TV shows discussing her faith. Kerri's appeared on just about every major network and has been featured at some of LA's hottest nightclubs. She currently is in her third year of touring with comedian Bob Smiley with her sold-out tour for singles called Single Is Not a Four-Letter Word. Her new podcast called #INeedAttention launches later this year. She's passionate about her faith. She's been featured on CNN News as a Christian in Hollywood, TVN, CBN, Hour of Power, and others. She speaks about 40 weeks a year on Christian platforms as a comedian/evangelist for events of all sizes. She has toured with Lisa Bevere, Laura Story, The Newsboys, Ryan Stevenson, Joni Eareckson Tada, Plum, Cutlass, Lisa Harper, and Carrie Jove. She's been on tour with Family Life Today to sold-out crowds over 10,000 and has worked with Robert Morris at his Gateway campuses in Texas for over the last 10 years. It's an honor to present to you the hilarious, the talented, the anointed, supernaturalist, Kerri Pomarolli. Right here, right now, on the Supernaturalist podcast show. Let's go.
One author, and she's very popular, and she's one of those women who's like every moment counts, and she's churning her own butter, looking out into the horizon with her like 6 homeschooled kids, and I'm like, I am a failure, I suck. Now we're talking.
Kerri, what's up?
Hi.
Hey, this is awesome. I've been looking forward to this for a while. You were described as like the Christian comedian that's doing really cool stuff, but you also have like this crazy healing anointing.
That's exactly right. It's weird to hear somebody else say that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I am put on this planet to evangelize and pray for the sick. And by the way, I do comedy. Like, I feel like that's secondary, but
Okay.
it didn't start out that way.
Yeah. So, hey, let's dive in. So at what point did you realize, wow, I think I might actually be funny?
Never. No, still waiting for that to happen.
Okay.
I think when you become a comic, it's not because you're a little kid praying to God, oh, please let me be a comic. It's like, oh, I got picked on in 3rd grade and I have a big mouth.
Yeah.
And I did go to school in Detroit, and I went to a private little Dutch Christian Reformed school with inner city Detroit street kids bust in. So in 1st grade, we were doing Your Mama jokes. Like, literally. I learned all my jokes from, like, I remember the names, Quan Paxton and Andre Garrett. And, like, these kids were, like, Def Comedy Jam in the Dutch Reformed Christian school. So to be in a 1st grade class that is getting in trouble with the PTA, like, that just started it off. And I'm Italian. So I'm in the Dutch Reformed Christian school with the inner city Detroit kids, and I'm the Italian kid. So like the whole setup is like, you're not normal. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
It was great. But then my parents are kind of funny people, and we laugh a lot in my house. And the performing was, performers they come out of the womb that way. Like, there's no other choice for them. Like, I always, if somebody's like, my kid wants to be an actor, I'm like, will they cut you if they don't do it? They're like, yes. Okay, that's when they're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
So I came out going, I'm going to move to Hollywood when I was 5.
Just always doing shows and just always entertaining
in my basement
people.
and keeping my babysitters up till like 11.
Yeah,
and
selling tickets.
Clearly, my little brother's the MC. I have pictures. But, so I was always performing. And I never thought of myself as funny. I just literally was always a little odd man out. And you have to cope with that. So you are funny. And then I think the funnier you are, you almost get picked on a little bit more because people are amused by it. I've learned that lesson looking back. There was a girl that got picked on in grade school and she would cry. And I think the boys were like, that's not fun. And then I would fight them. And then they're like, oh, Kerri's adorable when we pick on her, right? So being quiet, like that whole gift of silence, maybe something I should have invested in grade school. But so I went to high school and I went to University of Michigan and I majored in music and theater. And when I was 22, we loaded up a minivan and we drove to LA and my mom and dad dropped me off.
Oh my goodness.
And then this was in the late 90s where we did not have GPS.
Okay.
So we had a magic marker and a map. And so my father...
That's terrifying.
Do you remember? You're so young.
Before
cell phones? Do you remember
phones?
maps?
Yeah, well, I remember MapQuest.
Yeah, well, no. There's no MapQuest.
Well, you had to print it up on a printer.
It's called a Thomas Guide. It's a big book, and it's like, remember geography class?
Yeah, my dad had one.
0.46.
I never used a Thomas Guide.
You have to go to the map, and you're like, the geography says L4 is like here.
Yeah.
So I had a cell phone, but it was a car phone, right? So like 1999. You probably were not born. But I had a car phone.
I was born in 2002.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. No,
yeah.
I'm 82.
So 1999, you have a car phone.
Yeah.
It stays in the car.
Yeah.
So you're not just calling your friends because it's like 50 cents a minute. So you're only calling your friends and you're like, I'm stuck on the Hollywood mountain. I can see the Hollywood sign. I need to get to Santa Monica. Help. So there's no GPS. So you have a piece of paper in LA driving around. So it was actually, as I would like to say, the best of times and the worst of times.
That's why there's gas stations.
It's like, oh,
right?
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But so I worked 3 jobs. I lived with my roommates. I did auditions. I started working as an actor. Lots of Christian TV, General Hospital, Young and The Restless, all the Christian shows.
That's what I saw. I saw these soap operas in your resume.
It's nice work if you can get it. But no, I just was acting and then...
Was that like a regular thing? Like you were a regular
I was Nurse
repeating...
Kathy, the mute nurse. I always called myself mute because I didn't get a lot of good storylines.
Yeah.
And I told my mother, it'll be next week when she gets her voice back. But and then my big break was getting the Jay Leno comedy show, and I started doing sketches on the Tonight Show, and that's when I started to go, this is fun.
Okay, so let's rewind. So before you, because that's a huge deal, like to be on the Jay Leno.
Yeah.
So were you were doing like stand up at different?
No, no, this is before stand up.
Oh, okay.
I started doing characters. So it was
characters.
Britney Spears. It was the Bush Daughters. It was Tanya Harding.
So were you doing that at different kinds of like clubs and stuff?
No,
like just getting up and doing character?
They would write the sketches and we would perform them. But I was in a thing called Second City, and I was in a thing called The Groundlings. And that's where Will Ferrell and Sherry O'Terry, and Second City is where all the Saturday Night Live cast, John Candy, John Belushi, all of them.
That's awesome.
That's improv.
Yeah.
So then I started to get more into my faith. And that happened in my mid-20s when this girl invited me to her church. I'd been in church my whole life. But her church had people in Hawaiian shirts and their hands were waving up and down. I'm like, it's a cult. But they have chicken, so I should probably stay. So
free food.
Yeah, free food. It's what's called a Foursquare church. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I'm a Catholic girl from Detroit. And so I was like,
Foursquare is totally a cult.
Yeah, clearly.
Totally.
It was called Kings Harbor in Redondo Beach.
Yeah.
And so I walk in there and they're all waving their hands and the pastor's got jeans on and my mother in my head is like, don't drink the Kool-Aid, wear your pearls.
Yeah.
And then I start bawling in the worship. I'm like, why am I crying? It's an intervention. There's Kleenex in the aisles of this little church. And then the pastor remembers my name next week and I get more chicken and then they invite me to small group and I get more food. And so I'm just sort of evolving into this Christian thing. And these are like ex-drug addicts and ex-this. And I was like, this is not my mother's church.
Yeah.
Like, this is not Georgia Presbyterian Frozen Chosen. And like, they're like, when I used to smoke crack, and I'm like, what? They let you in? Like, how? I stack up fine compared to you guys, you know? So I fell in love with
I'm in the wrong group.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But I was like, I like you guys. I like you a lot, you know? And so I made friends with this popular girl. Her name was Betty. She was 87. And they counted the prayer request, her and Marion. And I was like, you need to get in with these girls because they know the dirt and they bake. So it was always about food. And Betty was like awesome. And we were buddies. And she told me that she made mistakes in her life. And I never heard a church lady because my mother's perfect. And so I fell in love with these people. And I fell in love with Jesus. And I fell in love with church. And I was like, this is why I want to go to church.
And this is at the same time as like...
I was doing improv and I'm doing Hollywood and I'm not doing stand-up. And I'm trying to make my way Christian light. And I was a good girl. I wasn't doing anything bad.
Sure.
And then I went to this women's retreat and I came home and did the ugly cry after you go to a retreat. And you're like, I'm more Christian now. I want to serve you, And like got my Bible and I opened it up to whatever page and like, what do you want from me? And I just felt like there was something inside of me that was like, try stand-up comedy. It was not my idea. And it was like, move back to Hollywood, immerse yourself in this culture.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Only God could have said that.
Wow.
And so I was in Second City and the improvs were getting harder to be a part of because the longer I was there, they kind of get dirtier. And one of my castmates got saved just because I was there. And I would bring my castmates to my church to do shows for the youth. Find out later that half of them were high. I didn't know. I was so like clueless, right? But one of them ended up getting saved. And like,
it's incredible.
It was, and these are people that have done big things. Like I was in Second City with Derek Waters. He created the show Drunk History and like some, Simon from The Big Bang Theory, he was a class of me. Like, these are kids that are doing amazing things in Hollywood. And I'm like, God, why am I even there? And I look back and I'm like, I was sharing Jesus without being super cultish. They just knew I was Christian.
Wow.
And they liked coming to my church. And they'd be like, it's cool to go to Kerri's church. I mean, it was just so funny. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to try stand-up. It happened so fast. I took a comedy class. Within 3 months, I was on stage. Within 6 months, people were offering to pay me. They asked me to go to a church. Sherry Shepherd, who you would remember, she was on The View, and she's a pretty famous actor.
Yeah.
She's a Christian.
Yeah.
And she's an African-American. And so they started taking me to all these African-American churches, which is when I found out that I like black people better. I've just decided, as a general rule, white people are not my greatest audience. It's Latinos.
I'm not that big into
crowd,
white people
right?
either. Yeah.
Yeah. So, which would explain the
totally
rest.
Overrated.
The rest of my entire life. So I toured with them, and then one church. And so what happened was, I kind of got sick when I started doing comedy. I had some stomach problems. They couldn't diagnose me, and I've always dealt with medical issues, and it was pretty intense. Well, my church was having these bootleg prayer meetings. Friday nights. It was like you had to get invited.
Yeah.
Right? And so I heard there were these prayer meetings and people were getting healed. And all of a sudden, it was like an ambush. Everywhere I looked.
These were like unannounced?
These were like, you better know the password to get in. Because apparently,
Secret knock.
People were like praying in tongues. I didn't know what that was.
And that wasn't a regular part of like the Sunday morning?
Oh, no. That church was 4 square, but it was more like 2.5 square.
Okay.
And so the pastors, the bootleg pastors, were doing these Friday night prayer meetings. And I would roll on in there and watch this guy who was yellow because he needed a liver. His name was Bernie. He was going to die in 3 days. And they would pray for him, and then he would get better. And then
was this like a special kind of speaker that was there?
No,
or was, like,
it was
this
a
is
living
the normal
room.
crew?
It was like this couple hosting prayer in their living room. And I'm like, I got to get a hold of this.
And God was just honoring it and showing up.
I need to get into this room. And I would crawl, and we would pray till 2 a.m.
Wow.
And people would say things to me like, do you know what tongues? Or they're like, have you ever heard of like deliverance? And I mean, apparently I must have had, I don't know what your listeners, if you're allowed to talk about this, but I must have had 87 demons. I'm sure I did. Because every time I would go, people would pray for me, and I would feel like all this stuff like lifting off me. I didn't know what was going on, but it was like a boot camp. At the same time, I'm in Hollywood doing stand-up comedy. So then the two shall meet because I have a big mouth. So then I start talking about it. On stage, off stage, I'm very out of the closet. And then people are like, oh, well, will you pray for my grandma? She's in the hospital. Is that a real thing? Will you pray?
So hold on, you're telling these kind of stories when you're doing like stand-up? Like
Kind
you're talking
of,
about
and
like
backstage.
about demons coming out of you? And
No. But comedy, it was just like becoming such a big part of my life. I couldn't stop it. So then when they asked me to go to a church, and they said, give your testimony. I was like, what is a testimony? I literally did not know. And they're like, well, what's God been doing? I'm like, oh, God's been healing me, and he's been doing a lot of stuff. And then they're like, well, will you give the altar call? I didn't even know. I'm like, can you write it down?
Yeah.
And I swear the first altar call I did, I don't think they're going to get it. I really don't. I think that church in Santa Monica is screwed. I don't think I did it right. But then it just evolved, and it's been 14 years now, but I couldn't shut up. So because I was going to these prayer meetings, which turned into a house church for 10 years of my life, which turned into a guy in the living room, let's get him out of the wheelchair, which turned into, hey, why can't we walk on water, which turned into more and more and more. And then finding other people that walked in that circle, I was addicted. I was like, I want to do this every day, all the time. And I would continually have to battle my own issues and my family, and my mother has been medically infirm, so I was on a war path to get all the healing I could, and I would always get healed, but there was always another thing coming.
Sure.
And then but we would go out and we would see people, and it was crazy. Sometimes I'd be like, Jesus is saying that story about healing the blind, and I don't know why I'm talking about this. And some Presbyterian church in Indiana, this lady comes up, she goes, well, you're going to pray for my eyes and I'm going to get my sight back. And my Presbyterian mother's there, she's like, well, that's going to be lovely. And we prayed, and then all of a sudden her sight starts coming back, and I'm freaking out, and my mother's just like doesn't know what to do with it. And then it starts coming back more, and then I followed this lady to lunch. Now, she had so much faith, she was not in a hurry. I was in a hurry. I was like, look at the wall. Tell me how many fingers I'm holding up. Tell me how many fingers. She's like, well, I told you I was going to get my sight back today, and I had glaucoma, and it's going away. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like following her around.
Right in front of your mom.
Yeah, so excited. And so my mother thought she got diagnosed with lung cancer. My mother's a cancer survivor 3 times.
Wow.
And there was a mass in her lung, and we really... we're scared. Well, guess who she wanted to pray with? My people. So we prayed, and we did everything. We called the radio stations. We did everything.
Sure.
She ended up not having lung cancer. By the time that they went to go look for it, it was not there. There was some sort of excuses that the doctors made. We know God healed her.
That's incredible.
And
that's
so
amazing.
It's just been this crazy roller coaster of a journey, and it's grown and it's evolved. And
so you were like catapulted not just into just a relationship with Jesus, but into this very supernatural where healing was just a normal part.
It's totally,
deliverance was just a normal part of your Christian experience.
I raise kids now that were born into it, and it's funny to watch them. When my daughter was 4, she really wanted to walk on water, and she was mad that she couldn't. And to have kids that were, quote, prophesied over before they were born, and like my 11-year-old has like a Catherine Coleman like healing anointing, and they go to a school where it's very flourishing there.
Yeah.
So it's funny to watch little kids walk in that when my faith. So I was at a show about 2 years ago. Lucy's 11, maybe she was 8. We can talk about this later, but I have a healing testimony about my daughter.
Yeah.
So at the end of my healing testimony, my little girl Ruby comes on stage and my little girl Lucy comes on stage. And we're at a pretty progressive, charismatic church. And Lucy grabs the microphone to pray. And she starts saying, well, God is a God of miracles. And if you want to walk, you can walk. And she looks at a little boy in the front row and she goes, and you are going to get up out of the wheelchair. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to fire me. I thank God they paid me before the show. I'm dying. I'm dying. And she's like, it may not be today. It may not be. And they're clapping. I'm like, thank God it's not a Presbyterian church. and she's like, you're going to walk. I say you're going to walk. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
So then I have to tactfully grab the mic back and be like, that was good. That was so good. So then I pray and get the heck out of Dodge. And I find out later that this little boy is in the wheelchair because he was in chemotherapy and he hasn't walked for several years. His parents had been praying for him every day to walk. So I have no part of this. Lucy goes over there. There's a man from the church. All of a sudden, the kid is up, taking a step out of the wheelchair.
Oh my goodness.
Crazy.
Wow.
And God is like, would you just shut up? Then the week later, she said he was using a walker, and now we're friends with the family, and we're still like continuing to pray.
That's incredible.
But my embarrassment is because I'm not 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They used to walk up to people, in the park and say, can I pray for your arm? It's in a cast. I don't ever want them to lose that. But that's the faith of a child that I wish that we could all still,
But she got that from you.
Yeah.
Right? Like that boldness and that belief that that's just what God's going to do. She learned that from somewhere.
Yeah. And I try to continue to foster it. And it's really funny because she's in junior high now and she preaches. They do these little sermons and you're supposed to do a 2 to 3 minute sermon. And she's good. And she's like, I want all of you to take out your phones and look on your Instagram. Would Jesus follow you? And she's like, I want you to know. And I'm like, who are you?
Your daughter's awesome. Right?
She's not even on social media.
Yeah.
And then I go, how'd your sermon? She goes, I preached for like 30. I go, what? you're supposed to preach 3 minutes. She goes, well, they skipped lunch because they wanted to hear me. I'm like, oh my God.
Revival broke out in the school.
Right. Well, they have revival at the school. But I was like, girl, you don't need to preach 30 minutes. She goes, I only did 15 last week. But she's so like full of confidence that I just didn't have at 11. I didn't have it at 12. I just want to keep her in this bubble for the rest of her life. And like, she's a weird kid. She dresses like, she bought a snowsuit at a flea market. She thought it was a jumpsuit. I'm like, it's a snowsuit. And she wears it around. She doesn't match. She's totally like this weirdo.
Wow.
But she kind of like makes it work. But I don't ever, if she was in public school, dear God, like I don't even know.
Yeah.
So it's just funny that this school in the middle of LA is this revival school since 1947.
What's the name of the school?
It's called Redeemer Christian.
Awesome.
And it's down to like 90 kids. I mean, it's been 200 kids and they're down to 90 kids.
Okay.
Because the devil wants it shut down.
Yeah.
But they pray and they have anointings and they have healings. And it's a mixed population, blue collar, white collar, mixed race, very, very mixed race. And the funny thing is, it's 90% African American. And then the church we ended up in after the house church is 100% African American, except for my family, right? So my kids are like completely immersed in all these different cultures.
It's amazing.
And
That's
now
so
we're looking
awesome.
for like a new church. We've been there 5 years and God is saying to move. And I said, well, I want to go to this other church, Resurrection. I was telling her about it. She goes, well, I guess, and I said, it's a lot of Latin culture. She goes, well, I guess I could get down with Latinos, Mom. I was like, Lucy, white people are good too. We're just, we haven't been around them much. But so we've had an interesting church life, and they've had an interesting life. They come on the road with me. They come on stage with me. Their dad's a comedian. I'm a single mom. We're not married anymore, but he is at the house like a bad sitcom all the time.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, that's Dad. He's on the couch.
Yeah.
But so their life has not been normal, which I think is kind of great. I don't know.
Yeah. It sounds incredible. Your story is it's just amazing. And so what does life look like right now?
Oh my goodness. So 3 weeks ago, I was told I have to leave the house that we're renting.
Okay.
In LA. Been there for 5 years. I live with my roommate, my 2 daughters, and my ex-husband periodically, mostly. But I'm a sole custody on paper of the kids. And so he had some medical, he had suffered from bipolar disorder when we were married.
Wow,
so he's working on his life, and he's a wonderful father. So 3 weeks ago, I'm told, you have to move. And between now and 3 weeks ago, I'm now putting an offer in on a house in LA, which is just insane. I mean, talk about drink the Kool-Aid. You have to give them your kidney. You have to drink the plasma. Like every month you have to go get plasma. And like it's crazy. And I'm just like, but to pay rent in LA or to put an offer on a house with termites, by the way. There's termites in the house. And the realtor's like, don't worry about it. Every house has termites. You really want to get in the market. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was in Seattle, your neck of the woods last week. I'm like, how much is that house? How much is that? She's like, you probably get that for $300. I'm like, what? I can't even get the termites tented for $300,000. So that's happening.
Amazing.
And I'm touring, and a couple books are coming out, and I'm always on the road. So, and not all the time. I mean, maybe a Friday or Saturday here and there. But so that's probably like your job. It never has consistency exactly the same way.
Sure. Now I'm excited to hear about your 2 books. They're coming out in November.
Thank you.
And you have 2 books that are coming out a day apart.
Or one day. I think they're both coming out on the 5th.
The same day. Okay. So let's talk about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was asked, how do I become the most godly woman I can? And there's a lot of examples out there. And the ultimate example, Proverbs 31 woman, right? So, as I like to say in my act, I read Proverbs 31, and it did not speak to me at all. I do not plow, and I do not raise early. So I was like, I'm never going to hang. And I love you, Lisa Turkers. Like, yes. But, like, I always felt, when I wrote my very first dating book, Guys Like Girls Named Jennie, I always felt like, what is with these books, I Kiss Dating Goodbye? I'm like, that's not a book for me. I wanted to write a book that's like, I gave dating a chance,
Yeah.
And so I always felt that there's so much pretty paper and shininess in the Christian world. And the way that I write is like hot mess for Jesus. So I said, I want to write a book called #Hot Mess for Jesus. So, and I'm never a Proverbs 31 woman. So for years I've been saying I'm a Proverbs 32 woman, Like when she orders, she gathers her food from afar. That's Uber Eats. So I'm always one step behind the cool kids.
Right.
So I wrote this book, and I wrote a letter to the Proverbs 31 woman in heaven because she has email. And I was like, listen, you're stressing women out for ages. Did you even know Solomon was watching you? Like, what's up? And so this book is an exchange of modern day issues.
Wow.
And I also wrote a 60-day devotional called She Rises Late and Her Kids Make Her Breakfast, Confessions of the Proverbs 32 Woman Devo.
Brilliant.
And
that's brilliant.
They let me put in 80s rap lyrics. They let me put in Botox stories. They let me put in Patrick Swayze. And I got the lyrics to the Golden Girls theme song. So people
sounds
say,
amazing.
People
This sounds amazing.
Is it like Beth
It
Moore?
sounds incredible.
No, it is not at all. Is it like Spurgeon? No. Is it like Christian? Yes, it's Christian.
Yeah.
But so the Devos are like a page and a half long, but I really poured my heart into it, and I just let it all hang out. I mean, I sold a bunch of people down the river, especially my kids and my ex-boyfriends, all of them.
It sounds incredible. It sounds like such an amazing project. I would love to read it when it comes out, especially because within Christian literature, there's not a lot of Christian literature that makes you just laugh, where you can really kind of enjoy it and really kind of enjoy yourself. There's a lot of great Christian literature that'll make you
cry,
weep. And that will resonate with you, but make you cry, But
there's a couple authors that I couldn't even get through because I'm sobbing. Like there was this one author, and she's very popular, and she's one of those women who's like every moment counts, and she's churning her own butter, looking out into the horizon with her like 6 homeschooled kids, and I'm like, I am a failure. I suck. And like my book is like I'm in the bathtub eating Nutella with a fork. I mean, like. And I skip church, but I watch VeggieTales. Like, that's my quiet time.
That's awesome.
It's true. Like, we're live streaming today. Yeah. It still counts, right? It's like all the sins that we're all doing. So, I don't know. And I have this group on Facebook called the Proverbs 32 Women Facebook group. And hashtag Hot Mess for Jesus. And I am amazed at how many women, 500 women joined this group. And I'm so flattered. And they're all just as messed up with me. Like they're posting their pictures of their kids in not matching shoes and getting up to church. And I mean, like just all the stories. But then, of course, because I am who I am and God is who he is, it turns into a prayer group. I didn't even plan it. And these women start praying for each other. And then I start praying. And there was a woman in the first week of the group with 6 cancerous tumors. And then she goes back to the doctor and they're all gone. They're all gone.
That's incredible.
And another woman was supposed to get a feeding tube, and now she doesn't have to get a feeding tube. No, listen.
That's incredible.
I want the 498 others of us to get all that, and I still haven't figured it out. Because if I get a hangnail, I'll probably go to the ER. Like, I have started a prayer meeting before being like, do you guys have Advil for my head? I mean, right? It's like the shoemaker's kids go shoeless.
Right.
Like, so.
That's awesome.
And I know you're really into that. And do you struggle with like the way in God heals and doesn't heal? Like, does that bother you? Do you stress about it, or do you try to just not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the hardest things for me to teach on in our church environment is healing. It's easy for me to go to another church. It's easy for me to go minister somewhere else where I'm not doing life with those people. My first 12 months of ministry, I did 8 funerals, and they were tragic losses. We lost 2 different mother-son situations, in the same year. Like they're just, and also I was wrestling with my own belief. Like I've always known that God can heal, but I just didn't expect for him to ever do it with me or through me.
But from what I read about you, you are very into it. Like you're
absolutely,
a big,
absolutely.
Like the stuff I'm telling you, you're not like, oh, she's crazy.
Yeah, no. But I've been through this process, like this process of where basically I was basically kind of like an unbelieving believer, like an unbelieving pastor.
Sure,
if that makes sense.
Well, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, and so I had to go through this place where I was going to be like, no matter what I see, I'm going to trust you, God, that you can and that you're willing.
It's just, I struggle with it because I don't want it to feel like a lottery of like, oh, I prayed for 15 people and 2 won. But sometimes in my own head, or why do I suffer? I do suffer very greatly with medical attacks. A lot. And then I know all the prayers. I know all the words. I know all the songs. I know everything. Yeah. And I can't seem to overcome it in a quick enough way for me. But I always seem to overcome it. But I'm like, Lord, I am praying there's no recipe I'm a part of a prayer team with John G. Lake Ministries. They're some of the greatest prayer words. But yet, if somebody had the secret sauce, we would all be doing it. And so in the healing journeys that I've walked out, the longer, the progressive ones, the thing that I've learned mostly is God's like, just don't quit. Like, just stay in the game. You've got two choices. You can get out. You can buy the T-shirt of sickness or stay in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Do you know who Randy Clark is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like Randy.
One of the things that Randy talks about is he says that it's important that we're developing the healing gift outside with people, like develop it before anything ever comes to your own home, because when your own child is sick, that's when you don't want to be figuring out what you believe about healing. So begin to develop that gift just out and about, and
or like pastors though, like that I really admire. I wish I could take them out to lunch and be like, how sick are you on a Sunday morning? Like, how many times have you had to drag yourself on? Because I've been
how many Red Bulls do you have to actually drink?
I literally got a kidney stone attack last month.
Wow.
Which is the most demonic pain, and I've had it like 20 times in my life.
Wow.
And it took weeks to get over it. And I was still working, and I was still performing, and I was still seeing people get healed. And I was crunched over on the floor backstage, and these women walked by me, and I think I thought there was like a stowaway or a homeless person. And then 2 seconds later, like, you've seen her on the Tonight Show. It's Kerri Pomarolli. The audience doesn't know. You never tell them. But I'm like, I wish more pastors kind of talked about it, because I don't. Not that you want them to talk about it to be like, yeah, my life sucks, it's so hard. But sometimes I feel like, man, are other people struggling as much as I am behind the scenes? And then, of course, I have friends, and the answer is yes. But, sometimes I'll study some of these word faith people who I love and respect, and they're so joyful like all the time, and they're like, God is so good, and Jesse Duplantis, and he's like, I haven't been to the doctor in 30 years. I'm like, what are you doing that I'm not? And I really want to know, sincerely. I really want to know. I'm not a denominational person. I believe in any denomination that believes in Christ. So I just try to take what I can. But I don't think anybody really has the answer. I think it's a matter of like, just don't get so discouraged that you don't keep trying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if we can just remember that, yes, that Jesus is the answer, that on the cross, that's when healing was made possible. That's when salvation was made possible, that all of our healing was paid for. Like when did you actually get healed? 2,000 years ago on the cross. Right. Yeah. But when is that actually going to manifest? Does it manifest here and now? Does it manifest tomorrow or in heaven? But that your healing has been made. There is an expiration date on every disease, and even death isn't final, right? Right. And so we tend to glorify the here and now. We tend to glorify the earthly, and that's. I mean, I'm not one of these guys, or if it's earthy, it's bad, right? Or if it's fleshy or something. But Paul certainly had a revelation of that. He was like, what are you going to do, kill me?
That's really spoken to me a lot through the years, except for now that I have kids.
Yeah,
do you have
totally.
Kids?
Yeah, I got three, four. Just had a fourth.
It's good to know how many. You should probably.
I call her Stop Baby number 4. Yeah.
Do you know her name?
Yeah, Victoria.
Okay, good. Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm
paused.
so. Don't,
okay, just checking. Look at him checking.
Don't ask me that. No more questions for me. Let's talk about you.
When you think about having kids, that's the only reason I don't want to die. But if it wasn't for them, first of all, I don't trust my ex-husband with them for the next 18 years. I love him, but not really. So besides them, death does not scare me.
Yeah.
But I will fight to the death. I do not pray anything.
That's good.
Anything less. But I always like to just hear how other people think about it. I just feel like when I watch Todd White, who I really admire, and he goes on a cruise ship and he gets like all the waiters and waitresses together in a video and he starts praying for them and stuff starts getting healed. I'm like, there's nothing more fun that I can think of in this world. But it's a lot of work to get to that place. There's a lot of warfare. There's a lot of quicksand that nobody sees, and they think, oh, you're pastoring and you're telling jokes. It's delightful. They have no clue what it takes to get to the microphone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, as far as the journey that it actually...
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
No, I mean, even a daily journey, even the warfare, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Putting out fires.
I think the frustrating thing is when people look at somebody and they think that they didn't have to do anything to get it. It was just given to them, or if you're just privileged because you're there. I think when there's that kind of assumption, that's when it can be real easy to be offended by that sort of assumption. But I would imagine that everybody has such a journey. Everybody has so many trials and things that they have to go through, that it's awesome when people actually do get to come into certain sort of recognition for their achievement and a certain level of performance that's being celebrated by the culture, because it is at a certain standard.
And then the Bible says that we're not supposed to celebrate that. We're not supposed to strive for that. And, I'm watching this Bible study series, and she's like, don't be like, some of these churches in the New Testament where it's all about self-promotion. And I was like, well, y'all didn't have Facebook then. It's like I struggle with the business that I'm in, of being like, I have to promote myself on a daily basis because I'm an entertainer and there's a machine that needs to keep running. Sometimes I want to chuck it and just hide.
Don't you think that, I feel like it's almost a religious spirit that comes to get you to disappear, that comes to try to get you to erase your face or your name or your, because when you look at the ministry of Jesus, his ministry began by his Father promoting him in front of everybody. Jesus was baptized in water, and he comes out of the water, and the voice of his Father comes down and engulfs him, and he says, "This is my Son. This is my love, in whom I'm well pleased." Like the Father came and showered his public affection on
legit.
Jesus, like that. I think we all need that. I think we all need to be a celebrity in the eyes of our Father God.
But then how do we not suffer from competition syndrome? How do we not, whether you're a office worker or, an entertainer, I think there's that fine line. Entertainment's the worst. I don't think ministry is any easier because you're constantly, looking around, and I just try so hard. I definitely am okay with the performance. Like, I don't listen to the audience when I'm performing. People think I'm weird. And Ron, my ex-husband, who I toured with all the time, I would constantly get off stage and I'd be like, was it okay? And I still do that. And he'll be like, Kerri, they stood up. And I was like, oh, I almost like turn, it's like an out-of-body experience. So on stage, during the performance part, during the ministry part, if I started to get a big head about that, I think God would take it away in 2 seconds. So that's not even the problem. It's more like when I've got these books coming out and there's like this pressure that I put on myself, but then you have the publishers and you're like, I want it to do well. And if it doesn't do well, they won't ask me to write more books. And it's like this cycle, but I've chosen this cycle. And during the cycle, there's exciting things happen. Like
is it because it's unfamiliar? Like because you're so familiar on stage, you don't feel the pressure to perform. But because you're not doing that every day, because you're not putting out a book every day.
Well, I think when you're on stage, you've already bought the tickets. You show up, and they like you, and they clap for you. And I love doing a club. Yeah. I love going to Hollywood where I'm comic number 7 and they may know me, they may not know me, they're half drunk, and I go and I make them laugh. Yeah. And I might throw in some Jesus stuff, and I love doing that because they always like, what? But I do it in an inappropriate and funny way. But that makes me get a huge adrenaline rush of like, I did that. But I think writing is more, if you have a bad comedy show, you always get another chance. Yeah. When you write, I'm very blessed. I'm writing for the Hallmark Channel now. We're writing scripts and stuff.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing.
It's so much fun. But you can't help but put the pressure of like, this better be good. And in this world, it's an honor that somebody wants you to even write a book. So the fact that you put all this pressure, and the editors and the publishers and the marketing team, it's like a big deal as opposed to a comedy show. Just give me a mic. Just give me a mic. I'll go to Albuquerque. It's fine. I know I'm good at that. So the book is like, oh, I hope it's good. I hope it's good. I'm buying a house. I hope it's good. It's like, and I want to write more.
Totally.
So with Hallmark, it's a comical experience writing for Hallmark because they'll be like, oh, you said sucks. We can't say sucks. So you have to like go and rewrite the script. Or like, oh, he mentioned his abs. We can't say abs. Like Hallmark is like cleaner than Jesus. Like really? Hallmark, oh my gosh. Like it's so crazy. They were like, oh, you said jerk. Take it out. Yeah. So I'm like, dang, we need to go to Netflix. We're edgy.
Right.
So it's a joy. It's a joy to do. But there's this every time you turn in a script, you're dependent on somebody else giving you that next job. Yes. And my job is they love me and they hire me and then I'm fired because I'm done. So then you have to get more people to love you and hire you and then you're done. Yeah. So it is a cycle, but I've been doing it for 14 years and I've weathered a lot of storms. Wow. Bob Smiley, who's a great comedian, and we've toured together. And a couple years ago, it was like the election year and things weren't very profitable with all my jobs. And I was kind of scared. And he's like, have you not had a bad year? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, suck it up. Like, suck it up. You'll be fine. Just keep your head down. And he was right. But we don't have a boss. So on Fridays, I don't get like a boss paycheck. I have to pray and always be humble enough to go, God, hey, do you want me to go to Seattle? Yeah. And every time I'm so grateful because I've worked all the crappy day jobs. So I know I could be back there at any moment. I could be telemarketing at any moment trying to sell you a timeshare. Like, I don't know.
Sweet.
I don't know what I would do. I've thought about that. Have you ever thought about that? If you weren't doing what you're doing?
What's the first thing, like when you think about that, if you weren't doing what you're doing right now, what's like the first kind of default thing that you could see yourself
like
doing?
Either absolutely nothing, like trophy wife, like go on eHarmony and like grab like an older gentleman with money. Just like, and don't pray for healing. Like there's like a good, but like there, I mean, no, like maybe counseling, because I like to tell people what to do.
Yeah.
But I don't have day job skills. Like, I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I coach people. I have a coaching business. I coach speakers. I've coached pastors. I've coached comics. But, like, day job skills?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe sales. Maybe, like, I don't know.
See, for me, whenever I think of, like, if I wasn't pastor, I don't know why.
Right?
I don't know why. But the first default thing, that comes to me, like, I'm not thinking, I'd go all in YouTube. I'd go meet, like, I'm not thinking that at all.
What?
Like, I swing all the way over to, like, if I wasn't pastoring, I guess I'd just have to sell cars. Like, I go right to selling cars.
Yeah.
And I go right to trying to find, it's really funny, like, instead of just saying.
You drive by the dealership, you're like,
I go right into, but it wouldn't be that bad. Like, I try to start psyching myself out.
You're like, I mean,
we'd be okay, you know.
Well,
it'd be a Mercedes dealership, you know. You start like, you know.
I could do sales. I could call my friend Shelly. I mean, she does sales. I could do pharmaceutical. Like, and then I'm like, oh, I have to show up every day, and I hate that. And I've never had a day job, and I'm like, you know. And then God's like, calm down. But you know, when these churches call me and they're like, will you come to Seattle or you know, and they buy all my books at a show. Like, they literally don't know that they're feeding my kids in the literal sense. Because I think there's an impression of Hollywood. And I'm like, look, these dollar store stories are not just jokes, people, okay? I bought the popsicles. You know, but then here's the hilarious part about my life. I'm a single mom. I'm not wealthy. And yet I'm buying a house in Los Angeles, California, only by the grace of our Lord and Savior.
Come on.
Because He is making things possible. He's sending me roommates. He's sending me, like, it's
That's
not,
awesome.
And I've lived in this beautiful house, and it hasn't been because, I sent you a windful of money. It's never traditional when you're serving God, right? He will bless you like a prophet, like with favor from other people. You can't plan it or plan for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Hey, let me ask you. Let me tell you. So last year, I've always been fascinated by comedy, and it's probably more of just the larger conversation of entertainment. I don't know if we talked about this on the phone or not. And so I went down and checked out one of our local comedy clubs in Seattle, the Comedy Underground, and for an open mic night. And so I watched and I just observed. And then at the end of the night, I signed up for a week out, right? So I was on the list for the following week. So got there early, met up with my buddy. We're out there standing in line, just observing this chemistry and this dynamic with all the comics that were outside. It's funny because my buddy that was outside, he's so just naturally funny. Like he had everybody laughing, but he had everybody super intimidated because of how just ridiculously funny, you know. But I know him, so I'm not intimidated. So, anyways, we go in there, and one of the things I noticed after just spending just 2 nights in just our local Seattle-y comedy underground kind of environment, and with these comics that are just beginning, right, is I couldn't believe how some of the acts they weren't funny at all. And it's almost like they weren't even trying to be funny.
How grossed out were you with how dirty they were?
Yeah, I was. But actually, you know what it seemed like? It almost seemed like this was a form of therapy. It was almost seemed like they were. A few of them came out and just sat down, and it's like it was almost like we were their therapist, and they would make light of some of the most traumatic things in their life, and you know.
I remember doing an open mic a couple years ago because I was coming home from vacation with my family. Yes, I still vacation with my ex-husband. And we were driving back into Hollywood, and I get this call from this manager in Nashville, and he's like, Danny Robinson wants to come see you. Danny Robinson is Tiffany Haddish's manager. He's like this huge dude. He wants to come see you. And I'm such a type A that I'm like, stop the car. I need to go do an open mic right now. We're not even close to my house. Drop me off at Uber. I don't have anything to wear. He drops me off at the thrift store with my daughter. I buy like some dress, and I'm like, I'm going to an open mic. I mean, I'm a professional comedian, but I'm like, I'm going to. So the family drives me to this open mic, and I meet this girl. And then she decides we're going to go to another open mic. And it's a Latino gay drag bar at like 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. And it's dark, and nobody's there but the comics, and it's dark spiritually, and they're all just dredge of society jokes. And I just went on, I'm like, listen, I am here, and you all need a hug, and you need to make better life choices. Like, we all need to just stop right now. And they just burst out laughing because all these guys are like, you know, just so dark. Like,
wow.
Open mics are the darkest of comedy because you haven't honed any skills to be funny yet.
Right.
So how did you feel when did you take the mic?
Yeah, I did, and it was the most. And this is actually what inspired it. So when I'm at Sarah Revival Center, this is like my home court. Yeah. These are my people. They love me. I love them.
You kill every week.
Yeah, exactly. So I can say just something just dumb, and they'll be like,
yeah,
like just tears.
I
like
love Christians.
You know, like it's just amazing. I feel so celebrated every week. You know,
yeah.
And so I was like, I want to see what it's like in a place where nobody's going to honor me, where nobody's going to celebrate me just because, you know, where there's no
right.
And I'm just going to come in and see how this goes. And so I did, and it was the most. You got 2 minutes, and after 1 minute, the red light turns on. You know, and again, for a preacher, like, what can you do
You're
in
like,
2 minutes?
what?
I can't even introduce myself in 2 minutes. You know, like, hey, my, you know, and so like going into that, like, so it was so intimidating. It was so like, and you know what? If my buddy hadn't videotaped it, like, so there's my memory of what happened, and then there's what actually happened. My memory of what happened was it was this horrible experience. You know what I'm saying? And yet I felt so like the second I was done, I wanted to get right back up. I don't know.
See, that's what the test is. Richard Pryor said the adrenaline rush of stand-up was similar to his heroin drug use because the adrenaline rush, which you preach, you get it. So you either want to kill yourself after your first time doing comedy with a plastic fork, slowly, and because that's easier, or you're like, I can't wait to do it again. And like I was like you, I'm like, let me at it.
Yeah.
And even bombing isn't as bad as you think it was, and then you just get to a point where. But I am nervous as all get out when I do a club. I don't care how many years I've been doing comedy because there's a bunch of people in the front row and it's like some small room or whatever. And they introduce me and I get a great intro. She's been on the Tonight Show 29 times. They don't care. It's like Jerry Seinfeld that goes, I'm only Jerry Seinfeld for 2 minutes and then I have to be funny.
Yeah.
Because you can't fake funny.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There was 2 points where people laughed. And but I didn't know that when I did it. So when I listened to the recording, I was like, people actually laughed. Why did they find that funny? You know, like
you know, it's like when I coach young comics, I'm like, here's the thing. You need to get laughs when you do comedy. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes I coach people and they never call me back because I'm not easy. I'm like, you're not going to get up there and tell a funny story.
Yeah.
You're going to get up there and you're going to tell jokes and you need a punchline as you progress as a comic.
Sure.
Like, I'm talking about comics that have been doing it for a couple of years. You need a punchline every 10 seconds, and that's being generous, maybe 15. And that's, people will say, well, this funny story about my kids. And I'm like, the funny story is 3 minutes, and that payoff 3 minutes later is not big enough when your set on the Tonight Show is 3 minutes long. So next time you watch a stand-up.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Look, count the laughs. Count how many laughs they get.
Yeah, okay.
1, 2, 3, Jim Gaffigan, whatever. It's usually 10 to 15 seconds.
Yeah.
That's generous. If the really ones, it's like this. It's like, because you do the punchline and then the tag, then the tag, then the tag. And if they're that good, they're just hitting it. And you're laughing like the whole time. And you see these comics get an audience into the frenzy because they have wordsmithed. Because they started like you, 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. And you get 2 minutes that are undeniably funny. Don't go for 5. My first coach was like, don't go for 5. Then 5, then 7. But these kids, they want to rush it. And they want to go, can I open for you? Can I do 20? No.
Wow.
You know,
the thing that I was surprised about is like, so if I feel the more naturally funny I am is when I feel the most comfortable.
Sure.
Like when I'm hanging out with my friends.
Right.
But when I'm stressed out, I'm not funny at all.
Right.
Right. Like when I'm full of fear.
Right.
Like you don't even think about. So that was one of the craziest sensations. Is the pressure of having to be funny when you're absolutely terrified.
But comedy is a lot about anger. If you're not angry.
Maybe that's why I sucked at it.
Maybe your life is too good because you
I think
need
so.
problems. Because here's a theory. Eddie Murphy was funny coming up. Kevin Hart's funny coming up. You know who's not that funny anymore? Kevin Hart. You know why? He's got $80 million. He's not angry. He's not talking about his crackhead dad. Yeah. He's got a back porch problem with the raccoon. I just watched one of his specials. I was like, I don't care. I want to hear how you went to Disneyland with Shaquille O'Neal and you couldn't pay the bill. That's what makes me funny. Like when you're the broke one, like, so.
I think you're right.
Unless you're Seinfeld or Jim Gaffigan and you're an observational comic. But
Sure.
Jim Gaffigan's like, I'm fat. I have a problem.
Right.
Seinfeld's like, I have a problem with everything. If you don't have problems, you're not funny.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
be mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny, when I started comedy, I was blonde and blue-eyed, and I think I was 28, and I was like delicate. I was like, you know what's hard about being Italian? And now I'm yelling and screaming like an angry black woman. And I mean that in the best possible way, not racial. But
Right.
like, I am just angry, and I've evolved into this.
Are you though?
Yeah, like I'll talk about kids. I'm like, you know what? Kids are wussies. Like they are
Yeah.
wussies. I don't want to do a fundraiser, so they get a Nerf playground. They need to suck it up on the merry-go-round,
Yeah.
wheel of death, and see who makes it. So it's like this total.
But is
like,
that real?
Yeah.
Like, so you're
No.
because you don't seem like an angry
No,
person
I'm
at
not,
all. I
but
mean, you seem like you have all this joy. But
I have a comic's mind.
Yeah.
And a comic's mind is not right in the head. Do you really want to go back here? Do you really want to go to your pastor? You ever play that game? Like,
well, that's what I was wondering. Like, for how real does it have to? Does it have to?
It's got to, like, I joke. I'm like, my
Yeah.
11-year-old, LA is tough. She joined a gang.
Yeah.
It was an all-girl gang, and they made us sell these cookies, boxes of cookies, and everybody knew it was Girl Scouts. But it's like, so there's this thing, and I'm like, and I hate Girl Scouts meeting. You know, the only time it's fun is when they bring wine.
Yeah.
And so, because that happened one time, you know, and so it was sort of this like thing about girls, and I'm like,
Yeah.
and I hate my kids' activities. I can't even fake it. At least I have a phone. What did my mom have? A crossword puzzle, you know? So I'm saying things that other parents are like, I don't want to go to your basketball game. Nobody scores a basket. Just that tall girl. She's not even on your team. And you're never going to play professional basketball.
Right.
But I don't have the heart to tell you to your face, you know? So
Yeah,
it's
sure,
the stuff
sure.
that's in our inner,
Yeah.
it's not even the anger, but it's your inner monologue is what comics bring out. So if you're a good comic, I'm going to say things. If I'm doing a pastor's conference, it's one of my favorites because I can say all the things that you wish you could say out loud, and we
Yeah.
can make fun of,
Yeah.
you know, and I do millennial jokes and da-da-da. And I posted on my Facebook today, everybody hates millennials until you need an Adobe Acrobat turned into a PDF, right? And so
Right,
all
right.
the old people.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that I'm struggling with now,
awesome.
once I hit 40, is I never want to become an old person comic. But some of my old people jokes are funny. And so it's hard. Like I joke, I go, you know, I was 25, I would wake up and be like, I'm going to go scale a mountain. And now I wake up and I hurt myself in my sleep. And so like certain people will laugh
Yeah,
at that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I got to be funny enough to make the 25-year-olds still laugh.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I can't lie to you and say it was a skateboarding accident. I just slept with 2 pillows and I can't move my neck. So hopefully it's funny enough. But I was like, if I ever do a mammogram joke, kill me on the stage.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
shoot me. Because I don't
You still
want
have to have standards.
Yeah, I have standards, but yet as you don't want to resist the life stage that
Yeah.
you're in. Like I'm in a mommy life stage, but when 15-year-olds come up and say, "Will you sign my arm in Sharpie?" I'm like, "Okay, I'm still cool."
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it's that right, you know. And even like I notice that I am at this new church and I really like it. And the pastor's in his 40s; he's my age, but I'm old. I was like, why did they have to have all the flashing lights? And like, I don't need the strobe lights, and I just want to sing. And I'm like, Kerri, don't be the old cranky lady at church. Like, you know. So it's a weird hitting 40 and you know beyond. It's a weird life stage because you're not old, you're not young, you're sort of like in that middle ground. And I never want to be that person that's always reaching back and saying, well, I got to grab this generation to make sure they love me. It's trying to be present where we are, even in life, right?
Wow, right.
And I hate it when people go, enjoy it now with these kids. It just goes so fast. It just goes so fast. I was like, really? Do you want to come home and do their 3rd grade math? Really?
Right.
But I know they're right.
Yeah.
Right? How old are yours?
4 weeks, 5, 8, and 10.
You're in it to win it like me.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
Wow, you got 4 kids.
Yeah.
That's a party.
Yeah, it is. It
Boys,
is. And
girls?
So it's they're all girls except for the 8-year-old boy, and they're so much fun. Like they're amazing. But yeah, Andrea gets all the medals. You know, Andrea's just a trooper.
I mean, and I really love them at this age, so I hate it when they say it's going to get hard. And I have an 11-year-old who's very smart and very snarky, and you know, she'll say things to me and she'll get like a little hormonal and I'll go, we're not doing this. Like, I know your friends think we're doing this. You're not doing this. You're not getting PMS. You're not going to be hormonal. And she'll be like, did you ever get PMS? Which of course everyone does.
These are like declarations.
Yeah. And I was like, no,
making?
we're not going to do this, or I will lock you in your room for all of you. Like, you're going to like me. I'm going to like you. Like, that's
We don't
happening.
do PMS in this
We're
family.
not doing PMS.
Right.
So one time I'm out of
That's
town.
awesome.
And I mean, you have daughters. You need
Yeah.
to be prepared for this. It's not 14 and 15 when these hormones start kicking in. So Ron texted me a photo and he said, Lucy thinks she might be getting her first period. So she sent him to the store. So he sends me a photo. It's some feminine products, Ben & Jerry's ice cream, Advil, and salt and vinegar potato chips. Because that's what she's seen mommy do for all of her life, you know. And he's like, what am I going to tell her? She's wrong. I'm not going. She's like, Daddy, you have to go. And so, but like this whole teenage thing, like she's going to be a jerk. I mean, I'm like, no, we're not. Like, I like you. You're snarky. I will call you out on your stuff. I raised them completely different. My mother was very old-fashioned and authoritative. And I feel like my problem when you raise ministry kids is they're smart and they talk to adults their whole lives.
Yeah.
So then they think they're on equal footing.
Right,
So
right.
I literally have said the words, I'm the boss. Like, that's why.
Yeah.
And she's just as tall as me, you know,
Yeah.
and you'll see as they get
Yeah.
older, because your kids probably speak very eloquently because their lifestyle. They've been around.
Yeah, probably my 5-year-old is probably the most eloquent. Like
Oh.
she's probably the boss. You know, I'm always like, what do you know what you're even saying when you use these words?
Well, and then they're
she'll
never
actually
wrong,
make
right?
up. She'll actually make up words that are actually pretty impressive.
Don't
like
you
they're not
just-
even real words,
I love
but
that.
they're very they sound like they should be like
I
scholarly.
just like Lucy wants to be a judge. She wants to be a Supreme Court justice, and I think she's going to make an incredible lawyer because she will argue that Jesus died underground, and she'll win. Like you'll just be like, oh my gosh, I didn't read it. She's like, no, it's elocutionary, and it's like he died, and she'll just argue. And she's 11, and she's like, you know, Christopher Columbus did not discover America. Did you know he's a serial killer? And da-da-da. I'm like, what? She's like, oh, and he was a rapist. And so, like, we're sitting at dinner, and her dad's like, you just called Christopher Columbus a rapist. Do you even know what that word means? He's like trying to break it down. Well, my 3rd grade teacher said that he is a bad man. And like, so I'm just like, you got to stop with your words. You know, like, you are a danger to society.
Yeah. Sophia told us yesterday in the van, we did this crazy road trip. I was having to get on them for something. She said, Dad, don't be so dramaful. And I was like, don't tell me, you know, again, respect. Mad props for dramaful.
I was being dramaticful.
Yeah,
okay, about that.
yeah.
I love it.
But yeah, no, it's amazing. I was gonna ask you, like, so comedy's like always been like a big thing, especially with HBO, right? Really pioneering comedy, but now it's like I feel like there's like a revival.
I'm
of
really
comedy.
excited, and I'm working on a project potentially that could be a comedy special. Possibly with Amazon. And then I'm also working on a project that might come out next year with Fathom Events. Fathom Event is where they do these theater releases one night only.
Yeah.
They do
I've
this
seen those.
So we might be doing a comedy night with a couple other comics. It would be a one night only, maybe Mother's Day release, clean comedy, and faith-based performers, but with a clean major, like secular people could watch it and enjoy it. And I'm like, look, why don't you try to find clean comedy on Netflix? Try to find it.
Yeah.
It's barely there.
Right. Yeah, I mean Netflix and now Amazon's starting to get into. Yeah. Is that the direction that Amazon's trying to go? Are they trying to go with more with like clean comedy?
No, they don't care. We're just pitching it. We're just like, let us in. Like we're just knocking on the door. Sometimes I feel like the Christian entertainment culture, sometimes we can be late to the party. Like we haven't shown up for the comedy party yet. You know, we've shown up for the stand-up party, but Christian movies aren't. We love Christian movies, and if you're climbing a mountain, you can make a movie about that. Or if somebody wants to run a race, you can make a movie. But a comedy about a Christian that's got faults and foibles, it's really hard to get people behind that because they're so terrified of laughing at the wrong thing and being inappropriate. But I feel like the stand-ups, there's so many good Christian stand-ups out there. I mean, John Christ and Bob Smiley, and there's so many people. Bob, you owe me money. I keep mentioning you on this podcast because we're on tour together. But there's a lot.
Pay up, Bob.
Yeah, he owes me.
Yeah. It's time, Bob.
Yeah, we were doing a tour for Singles called Singles Not a 4-Letter Word. And then he got married and like ruined the tour. I hate him. But there's stand-ups that have always been good.
Yeah.
And pioneering stand-ups. Even the Mark Lowrys and the Shonda Pierces and the people that went before us. But now we need to parlay in that to the film world, which is what I'm hoping to continue doing. And just realize that it's okay to laugh. It's okay to write books that are funny. I said to my publisher, how many humor books do you have? And they're kind of like, oh yeah, we're not like doing a lot of humor right now. Why not? Amy Schumer's doing books. Mindy Kaling's doing books.
Right.
Everybody else is doing books.
Yeah.
So I'm the only humor book that my whole publisher. Maybe they have other humor books, not a lot. So we're just digging back in and seeing if
I think
people
that's
will
awesome.
like it.
I think that's amazing.
I hope so.
Yeah, and what we'll do is we'll include in the show notes links to, because you can actually pre-order.
Yeah, you can go to proverbs32woman.com.
Okay, proverbs32woman.com. Yeah, and I just love the title. I think that's amazing. Yeah, what's happening here in LA? The kind of the entertainment capital of the world. Do you feel like when it comes to spirituality and even Christianity that things are opening up, like the playing field is becoming a little bit more like people are like?
I would think that LA is a lot like Seattle. I think that we get a bad rap. We're known to be really liberal. We're known to be really progressive. And then I have been to some of the most spirit-filled, amazing churches. Now, here's the thing. It's a divided culture. If you're a millennial and you're okay going to a church called Bread and you have enough leather pants for 4 services a month, like there's a lot of churches for you. And they have really, their names. There's a church called Bread, Ecclesia, you know, like Peanut Butter and Tuesday. Like there's all these churches with like, we can't have 2 words. And like, they're amazing and they're calling down heaven and like, but I don't have the wardrobe for that kind of church. Like I'm like, I'm tired. I know you guys were clubbing and you guys wore that last night. And I've gone to those churches and they're meeting in nightclubs. But see, they're on fire. I went to one of those churches and I was psyched. It was in a club and this kid next to me was on his phone most of the service and he looked kind of tired. And we had to join hands. And I'm old. I'm like, the music is too loud. Turn it down. And we have to join hands. And then the pastor says, you know, if you want to accept Jesus, squeeze your neighbor's hand. Well, this kid squeezed my hand. I went into mother mode. I'm freaking out, trying to be cool at the same time. I'm like, oh my God, this kid just got saved. And God's like, see, you need churches that are in the middle of a club in Hollywood to reach these people. And this kid got saved. He got saved and he squeezed my hand. And I'm freaking out and he's calm. So I'm trying to be cool. But then there's the traditional churches, but there's sort of a divided culture. I've yet to find spirit-filled churches that have multi-generational congregations thriving and growing. I'm in one right now. I was in one before, but it was an older generation, and they were striving to get the younger generation to get excited. So it's kind of what I describe as when I was growing up in the 80s and even the 90s. Do you remember families would watch TV together? Do you remember like we would have, maybe we would watch Full House, or you would watch Growing Pains or whatever the shows were.
Friday night,
right.
TGIF.
Then kids got their own TVs. And then Disney Channel came out, and then Nickelodeon, and then kids had their shows, and their parents had their shows. So no longer is it family television. Even back generations ago, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, all the shows. There's no more family television. So it's almost like church is as segregated as pop culture. And I don't know if you see that. And everybody's obsessed with we have to reach the youth. We have to reach the youth. I get that, but don't go so far over to the left that you forget about the hand that feeds you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know what the answer is, but I'm seeing it in LA that you can find a church for you. You can find your tribe if you try hard enough. But being a spirit-filled charismatic lowers the playing field. You know? It's like going on Match.com and saying, I want to date a Christian. Why would you do that? Because, you know, it's like that's the 1.1%. But there are churches, there's revivals, there's amazing Christians, there's amazing schools, there's amazing prayer meetings. You just have to find your people. And I would rather be in a culture like LA where I go to church and it's real because I want to be there, than a lukewarm culture where maybe I'm expected to go to church because everybody in town shows up on Sunday and nobody's doing anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what you're talking about as far as like the club church scenario, kind of hipster church thing.
Do you have a hipster church? Because you look like kind of hipstery.
No, our church isn't.
You look cute.
That's an honor that you'd say that. No, like,
come on. Do you have coffee in the sanctuary?
Are you allowed to bring coffee? Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Old people would fight you on that.
You should see our carpet. But we like. What was I saying? Well, LA is definitely paving the way, I would say, as far as kind of like, you know, this club, you know, like
well,
it's
the
become
Judah Smith and like the people that are like, but then like, you know, people make fun of Justin Bieber and I'm like, well, he's going to church and somebody's ministering to him and somebody drew him in, and there's not just him, but like there's other young kids that they need to be drawn in somehow. There needs to be a place for them, but I hope that they end up getting in a meat church. You know what I mean? Like a meat church where you're like, We need to teach you about some life choices. My biggest problem with Hollywood is people saying that they're Christians and not wanting to give up the thrills of this world.
Okay.
I am so angry about it all the time because I feel like a lonely island sometimes going, I'm offended by this TV show. I'm offended by this movie. And I have born-again, spirit-filled Christians right next to me going, what? It's not that bad. And I'm like, I wish God could come down from heaven for 1 second and be like, she's right. Game of Thrones is porn, okay? Please listen to me. I talked to a pastor who watches Game of Thrones. And you can't win that argument with me. And I'm like, I'm going to give you a plate of spaghetti. And I know it's really good spaghetti. I'm going to put a little bit of dog food in there. Like, why are you going to eat it?
Yeah.
He's like, stop with your cliches. But
just a little bit of poo.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But the thing is, people are saying that they're Christians here and they're in the entertainment world and they're making bad life choices and the enemy still has a foothold over their lives.
That's right.
But then they're prophesying about Christ. So it sends the message to the public that if I give my life to Christ, I don't have to give up anything. I can still make all those movies. I can still have that big mansion in the hills. So what if you get divorced? It's fine. Like, you just get remarried 2 minutes later. Everything's fine. They're Christian. They're making it look really easy. And I don't think that's the message Christ would have given. Christ went to a cross and died. And he told his disciples, you're all going to get it. You're all going to die. Like, buckle up. So why do we think it has to be easy? Now, I do think God is going to bless me. I'm going to get a house with a garage. I'm really excited. He wants me to have a good life. But he's going to have me fight more battles. And I'm not allowed to do the things that other people do.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to some of the more public personalities that are starting to profess a more public thing of faith, when it comes to Bieber was one of the early ones a few years back, but now you have the whole Kanye thing that's taking place, and then you have I think Brad Pitt just recently kind of came out of
Brad Pitt's parents are born again.
Now I've heard that before.
Pastors, they're IHOP people.
Oh, are they really?
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome.
So years ago, in a People magazine article, they said, "What's your pet peeve?" And he says, "People that think I need to be saved." Katy Perry's parents, born again, spirit filled, tongue talking preachers. And I said to her mom once, how do you feel about your daughter? She's like, I'm praying for my daughter, just like you would pray for your daughter. Now, I think Justin Bieber, is it Bieber?
I think it's Bieber.
I think he's going to get on the Jesus train for real, if he's not on already. I think he's got a calling in his life. I really do. He started talking about abstinence. He's trying to turn his life around. How many pastors do we know? We had a terrible life. Or, your 20s were a big mess up, and then now you're pastoring. I think he's got a great call in his life, and we should give him a chance. And, I mean, first of all, Kanye, God bless him. Like, if he gets saved, if we could get a Kardashian on Team Jesus, anything is possible,
Kanye Kardashian. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, we shouldn't limit them, but I'm not taking it seriously until I think Justin is an example of somebody who's tried to make life changes. He said, I got married. I knew sex outside of marriage was wrong. I wanted to do the right thing. My marriage isn't easy, but this is what God told me to do, right? That's a Christian statement.
Well, I think that everybody's super skeptical.
Sure.
You have certain people that just, get excited about everything. Because they have no discernment. But you have, so I think you have people that are like, like this, like any sort of thing like this comes out.
Remember they wanted to put Bono on the Bible front cover in the 80s when he was like, I'm a Christian. We'll take anybody, okay.
But you know what I'm wondering? I'm actually wondering with because it's starting to pop like popcorn, and I'm actually kind of wondering if we've had so many different prophetic words about the West Coast and even like another Jesus people movement.
I hope so.
I'm almost wondering if there's like the rumblings of like a second Jesus people movement that's starting, because it started here in LA, right?
We had the Azusa Street revival.
Yeah.
What did you hear about Brad Pitt? Did he say something about God?
Yeah, just recently. I don't know if he was rolling with Kanye recently or something.
Oh, he showed up at Kanye's thing.
Yeah, and then he released a statement about how he was used to be an atheist, but going through this recovery with addiction with alcohol, it's brought him back to his faith. And
that's and the thing is, they're just people. Like, I'm sure you and I both say, like, behind the scenes, you meet people and you're like, okay, they're just people with problems and desires. And we put entertainers on such a pedestal.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
I'm like, listen, they got to stand before God. Like Tom Cruise and all those people, they have to stand before God. And it does not matter how many movies you made. But if we don't have our hearts break for them, if we're just jealous of them or angry about them or judgy about them, that's when we get into trouble. And that's my
Yeah,
battle
you're right,
on a
you're
daily
right,
basis of going, if I'm going to get judgy or competitive or angry, I am not going to be usable by God to minister to anybody if I'm just spouting off rhetoric because I think I'm somehow better. Where was I when I was 24? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Justin's a kid that was thrown into the spotlight when he was 13 years old with crazy temptations and crazy life. Look at our icons, every single one of them. Michael Jackson, George Michael. Drugs, major drug, Prince. Drugs to stay alive because they couldn't take it. Because the enemy dangles that carrot so hard and so fast. We shouldn't really envy their lives if you take back the curtain. But the enemy has such a foothold on Hollywood that nobody wants to take back the curtain. Even the Instagram, it's supposedly reality TV, is all fake. So I think we're just almost like poisoning pop culture with more fake. It's less real than it ever was. But if somebody really does in a public manner get saved for real and make like life choices and life changes and the enemy lets one go because God's more powerful, I would be really unique to watch. I haven't seen it happen. Well, there's, artists like the gentleman from Korn, but they end up kind of dropping out of the public eye sometimes. They're like, I gave my life to Christ. And then they're not stupid. They're like, I don't want a part of this dumb stuff anymore. I'm going to go live my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Brian from Korn, he's still really going for it. So he's
that's amazing.
He's in Korn.
And he wrote a book.
Yeah, but he shows up at he shows up, like I was just at a conference in Tennessee, and he shows up like
awesome.
Anywhere God is moving, it's like Brian shows up just to be in it.
And why do we think that couldn't happen to Brad Pitt? I mean,
yeah. Wouldn't that be amazing? Like anywhere God's moving, you're going to see Brad Pitt in the audience.
I really want to get 15 parishioners saved, but like one Brad Pitt equals 15 normal people. Like that's how we're like grading on a curve.
Right,
and if you could get Angelina, Lord, we could do Charisma Magazine together.
Right, that's right. That's right.
It's so funny. We're like, and it's real. We think that way.
Yeah, we do. It does, like, as much critique and as much kind of cynicism that there can be sometimes, it really feels like there's some sort of current, there's some sort of tide that's changing.
And I do tell you, I wrote this in my book, how jealous I can be of my friends getting worldly success. And I was backstage one night and my girlfriend booked an HBO guest star and my guy friend sold a movie to Hallmark, and I'd been pitching to Hallmark and I hadn't sold, and I was sick and my stomach hurt and I was cranky, and I went on stage and I performed and we prayed for hours that night, just hours. And I can't remember. I think there was a diabetes healing. I think there was a woman with an autistic child that I know that God was moving. And I went back to that hotel room. And by the way, my car had just been hit. I was at a prayer meeting. I came out. A drunk driver had hit my parked car. My parked car was like in the, everything was total. Wow. The insurance wasn't paying for it. So I had all this pity party. And I go back to the hotel room. I had sold every book that I brought. Like, I'm cashing like little $1 bills, and I'm crying because I'm like, Lord, that night was one of the greatest nights of my life. I would never trade this for an HBO guest star. I would never trade this. But Lord, if you want to give me an HBO, I'm totally open. But to be in your calling, in your lane, we got to stop trying to get in somebody else's lane.
That's right.
Even in ministry, right? Like you are supposed to be doing this podcast at this moment for such a time as this. There's other pastors like, I'm supposed to be doing a podcast. Maybe not. But like you're in your lane and you know what it feels like to be in your lane, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
when you love it and you can't wait to get up on Sundays and you can't wait to be with your people. But if you went to the left and you said, I'm supposed to go to overseas evangelism, maybe that wouldn't be your lane.
It's true.
And you would feel it. Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun too because I feel like the Lord gives us permission to engage with various assignments. Mm-hmm. So I've taken on some things that didn't necessarily have a lot of favor on them.
Did you know at the time, or did you think?
No. Like I've tried different things where it seemed exhilarating, it seemed fun, it seemed like it could be God, but it turned out it wasn't. And so to be able to gracefully leave something just as gracefully as you stepped into something. Or get
that revelation of like, no, that was not you. Sorry, Jesus. It's like, I tried it,
One thing that, I don't know if you know who Patricia King is.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, one thing that she talks about is she separates the call of God versus assignments from God. Mm-hmm. And I found tremendous freedom in that because it's kind of like being a pastor is not your call. She would say that's an assignment because one day I might be 95 and might not be a full-time pastor.
Well, what do you think about evangelism? So I think evangelism and healing are my call.
Okay, well, what Patricia would say...
Because I'd be like, being a comedian's not my call.
Yeah.
But being a person that prays for healing, I feel like might be my call.
Yeah, so if it's something that I think that she would, like, that could be a call, because it might be something that you might do all the way up until the day that you die. And
I've tried to quit comedy a couple times, and I remember praying about it and feeling like God was going, well, you could work at McDonald's, but you would be in the parking lot praying for people, so you might as well just do comedy.
Yeah. I think that like typically your call is something it's 30,000 feet, and it's a core part of who you are. It's a core part of your identity.
I think that's evangelism,
and that
for
no
me.
matter what you're doing, it's a part of it, and you can kind of just articulate it in just a word or two, versus the assignments. Like, you'll have a variety of evangelistic assignments or entertainment
or being
assignments.
a writer.
A writing assignment.
Sometimes when I pray for people at a show and I go home and I get really bad nightmares in the hotel, and it's a really hard night, and I can pray, maybe it won't happen, maybe it will, and I'll feel really bad afterwards, just kind of slimed.
Yeah.
But I get up the next day and I'm like, let me at it. Let's do it again. Like, it's almost like when you give birth, what your wife did 4 times.
Wow.
You're like, let's do it again. Because you forget the pain. You kind of know it might come again, but you're just like, let me at it. Nothing's going to stop me from praying for people. As much as the enemy wants to keep coming at me, nothing's going to stop me. But in those moments of pain and warfare, you might be like, oh, this is hard. But it's momentary.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Kerri, you're on the front line. So appreciate your yes to the Lord, and just what you're modeling. Would encourage everybody that's watching to make sure that you go into the show notes and click on the link there, pre-order Kerri's book. But also, everybody that's watching, let's covenant together to really cover Kerri in our prayers, because these people are on the front lines. They're not just one day going to do this stuff. You really are doing this stuff. You're modeling something. You're doing works of ministry. And it's amazing. So we just applaud you, and
thanks everybody.
Thanks for creating time in your schedule and making the trek and doing this. This was amazing. You're amazing, Kerri.
Thank you.